Here's what nobody tells you. The man who works hardest for his money is the man who will always be poor. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? It contradicts everything you've been taught. But I'm going to prove to you tonight that the opposite is true, that wealth is not earned by labor, but assumed in consciousness. I've watched men toil for decades and die broke. I've watched others sit still, close their eyes, and imagine wealth into being. The difference, two simple assumptions, two feelings they held as true. And because they assumed it in consciousness, it had no choice but to manifest. You are not here to work for wealth. You are here to claim it. And I will show you exactly how. By the end of this teaching, you will no longer chase money as a beggar chases bread. You will not believe, but know that your consciousness is the only creative power in your world. You'll understand the two assumptions that instantly reposition you from struggle to abundance. And you'll walk away with a simple practice that requires no effort, no action, no hustle, only the gentle, persistent assumption of the wish fulfilled. You're here because you're tired. Tired of working without reward. Tired of sacrificing time, health, relationships, only to remain exactly where you started. You've been told that success requires grinding, that if you're not exhausted, you're not working hard enough. And so you run yourself into the ground and still the money doesn't come. Let me tell you why. It's because you're operating from a false law. You believe that the outer world is cause and you are effect. You believe that if you just do more, push harder, prove yourself worthy, then wealth will come. But that is the lie that keeps humanity enslaved. I spent my life discovering what the mystics and prophets knew, that the world you see is nothing but the outpouring of your inner assumptions. Every dollar, every opportunity, every open door, it all begins inside you in the unseen realm of consciousness. And when you change what you assume to be true about yourself, the entire world changes to match it. I have lived this. I have tested this in my own life and watched it work for countless others. Not through action, but through assumption. Right now, you're living from the assumption, I must work to get money. That assumption is creating your reality. It dictates that you remain a servant to circumstance. But what if you shifted to I am wealthy? What if you assumed right now that the wealth you seek already belongs to you? The difference is this. One assumption puts you in bondage. The other sets you free. You've been told that imagination is fantasy, that being realistic means accepting limitation, that assuming wealth without earning it is delusion. But I tell you, consciousness is the only reality. What you assume in consciousness must by law manifest in form. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is the fundamental structure of reality. Imagining is not pretending. It is claiming what is already yours in the unseen realm and allowing it to harden into fact. Other teachers will give you strategies, tactics, morning routines, affirmations. I'm not here to give you more to do. I'm here to show you that you are already the operant power. That within you is the I am, the creative force that spoke the universe into being. You don't need to become worthy of wealth. You need only to assume you already possess it. This is the teaching that changed my life, and it will change yours. I know what it is to feel invisible, to believe that success belongs to others but not to you, to watch the world pass by while you remain stuck. But the moment I discovered that I was not separate from my desire, that the wish fulfilled already existed within me, everything changed. I stopped begging. I stopped proving. I simply rested in the assumption of already being the man I desired to be. And so can you. Tonight you will discover that you are not powerless. You are God. Imagining, let me take you back to 1950. A man walks into my study. Middle-aged, good man, honest. He worked for one of the most prominent banks in New York. For years, he climbed the ladder slowly, painfully. He'd done everything right, showed up early, stayed late, kept his head down, did his work with integrity. But when he finally gathered the courage to ask his superiors for advancement, for recognition of all those years of faithful service, they looked him in the eye and said something that crushed him. They said, "There is no future for you here. Any major improvement is impossible. If you're dissatisfied, you can seek another job." Imagine that. Decades of loyalty, decades of sacrifice, and this was his reward. A door slammed in his face, a ceiling placed over his head. No hope, no future, just the slow grind until retirement, never rising, never achieving what he knew in his heart he was capable of. He sat in my chair that day, and I could see the defeat in his eyes, the weight of it, the unfairness of it. But you know what struck me most? He wasn't asking for mansions. He wasn't asking for yachts or private jets or any of the things men chase when they're consumed by greed. He simply wanted enough to send his children to good schools, to provide for his family with dignity, to live without the constant anxiety of bills and expenses. And the bank, the very institution he'd given his life to, had told him it was impossible. I looked at him for a long moment, and then I said something that confused him at first. I said, "Do you know what your problem is? You believe you must earn your advancement. You believe it comes from them, from your superiors, from the bank, from some external authority that has the power to grant or deny your future. But it doesn't. It never did. It comes from you. It comes from your assumption of what you already are." He didn't understand. How could he? He'd been raised, like most people are raised, to believe that the world outside you determines your fate, that you must work hard, prove yourself, and hope that someone in power notices and rewards you. But that's not how reality works. That's not how consciousness works. So I told him, I said, "Tonight when you go to bed, I want you to do something very specific. I want you to imagine one thing and one thing only. I want you to feel yourself at the end of the most important day of your life. Feel that you've just closed the deal to join the kind of organization you've always dreamed of. Not hope for it, not work toward it. Feel that it is done. Feel the satisfaction of it. Feel the relief washing over you. That sense of accomplishment, that quiet confidence that comes when you know you've achieved something significant. And then in that feeling, fall asleep." I told him this was not a game. This was not wishful thinking. This was the law by which all things come into being. I said, if you do this faithfully, if you persist in this assumption without wavering, you will inevitably get the kind of position you want. Not because you'll work harder for it, not because you'll impress someone, but because consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume in consciousness must manifest in form. He looked at me with a mixture of hope and skepticism, but he agreed. And I want you to understand what happened next, because this is not just his story. This is the story of how reality works for every single one of us. Every night, without exception, from the first week of December through early February, this man lay in his bed and lived in that assumption. He didn't visualize himself sending out resumes. He didn't imagine himself networking or interviewing. He simply felt the satisfaction of already having closed his dream deal. He felt himself at the end of one of the most important and successful days of his life. And in that feeling, that deep quiet, knowing that it was finished, he would drift off to sleep. Do you know what's remarkable? During those months, nothing appeared to be happening in his outer world. His job at the bank remained the same. His circumstances remained the same. If he had judged by appearances, he would have given up. He would have said, "This isn't working. I'm wasting my time." But he didn't. He remained faithful to his assumption. He rested in the Sabbath of fulfillment, trusting that what he had claimed in conscience was already done. And then in early February, something happened. A director of one of the wealthiest foundations in the world, one of the largest, most prestigious institutions you can imagine, called him out of the blue. This wasn't someone he'd applied to. This wasn't a connection he'd been cultivating. This was a door that opened seemingly by chance, by coincidence, by what most people would call luck. The director asked him if he would be interested in joining the foundation in an executive capacity handling investments. They spoke briefly, and within a short time he accepted. Today, this man earns a substantially higher income than he ever thought possible. He has the assurance of steady progress. He manages the kind of funds he used to dream about. And he did it all without working harder, without fighting, without begging for recognition. He did it by assuming. That's all. He assumed the wish, fulfilled, and reality rearranged itself to match his assumption. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. This man didn't create anything new. He didn't make something out of nothing. What he did was claim what already existed in the realm of consciousness. Every possible state, every possible version of your life already exists right now in this moment. The version of you that is wealthy exists. The version of you that is poor exists. The version of you that is successful, fulfilled, free, it all exists. And which version manifests in your world? The one you assume to be true. This is why I say the outer world is not cause, it is effect. The bank did not determine this man's future. His consciousness determined his future. And the moment he changed his assumption, the moment he stopped assuming, "I am stuck. I have no future, and started assuming I am successful. I have closed my dream deal. The entire world reorganized itself to confirm his new assumption. Let me tell you something personal now. When I was young, I believed what the world believes. I believed that if I wanted wealth, I had to go out and get it, fight for it, prove myself. I thought God was somewhere outside me, somewhere up in the heavens, judging whether I was worthy enough to receive blessings. I thought that if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, if I proved myself good enough, then maybe, just maybe, I would be rewarded. So I tried. Oh, how I tried. I hustled. I struggled. I tried to force doors open with sheer effort and determination. I believed that action was the key, that doing more would bring more. And do you know what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Or rather, what happened was exactly what my assumption dictated. More struggle, more lack, more proof that I was not yet worthy. I remember feeling so frustrated, so defeated. I would look at others who seemed to have wealth and success, and I would wonder, what do they have that I don't? What am I missing? And the answer, it turned out, was simple. They had a different assumption. They weren't better than me. They weren't smarter or more deserving. They simply held a different concept of themselves in consciousness. The turning point came one night when I was lying in my bed, exhausted from striving, worn down by the endless cycle of effort and disappointment. And a question came to me, a question that shattered everything I'd been taught. The question was this: what if I already am what I'm trying to become? What if the struggle itself is the very thing preventing it? It was such a simple question, but it opened a door in my mind that had been locked my entire life. Because you see, as long as I was trying to become wealthy, I was affirming that I was not wealthy. As long as I was working towards success, I was declaring that I had not yet achieved it. The very act of striving was an assumption of lack. And in that moment, lying there in my bed, I did something radical, something that went against every instinct I'd been taught. I stopped trying to get wealth. I stopped hoping for it. I stopped visualizing myself working toward it. Instead, I simply assumed I felt that I already was the man of wealth, not in the future, not someday. Now, in that very moment, I didn't see money appear in my hand. I didn't hear a voice from heaven confirming my assumption, but something shifted inside me. Something deep and fundamental changed. A quiet knowing settled in my chest. A feeling that can only be described as the peace of fulfillment. I felt wealthy. I felt secure. I felt like a man who had no financial worries because wealth was simply his natural state. And from that feeling, from that assumption, held faithfully in consciousness, opportunities I'd never imagined began to appear. Not because I worked harder, not because I suddenly became more talented or more deserving, but because my consciousness had changed. And the world must always conform to consciousness. You see, the world is not cause you are. The economy is not cause you are. Your bank account is not cause you are. The moment you assume a state in consciousness, the entire universe must rearrange itself to match it. This is not a theory I read in a book. This is not philosophy. This is the law by which reality operates. And when I discovered this, when I truly understood that I am is the creative power, and that whatever I assume I am becomes my reality, I was free. Free from the tyranny of effort. Free from the belief that someone or something outside me had to give me permission to be wealthy. I have lived by this principle ever since, and I have never worked hard for money again. Not because I'm lazy, not because I don't value contribution or service, but because I understand that wealth does not come from labor. It comes from assumption. And the moment you grasp this truth, really grasp it, not just intellectually, but in the depths of your being, everything changes. Now, let me share one more story with you, because I want you to see that this law works not just in matters of money, but in every detail of life, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. I've always loved birds. There's something about them, their freedom, their simplicity, their trust in the abundance of nature that has always moved me. For many months, I made a habit to feed them every morning. I would put out crumbs of bread, wild bird, seed, anything I thought they would enjoy. It became a ritual. I looked forward to a quiet moment of connection with these small creatures. But I had a problem. The larger birds, especially the pigeons, would swoop in the moment I put out the food and gobble up all the good seed. They would dominate the feeding area, pushing the smaller birds aside, leaving nothing but husks for my beloved sparrows. Day after day, I would watch those little sparrows wait patiently on the periphery while the pigeons took everything. It frustrated me more than it probably should have. But there was something about the unfairness of it, the way the strong dominated the weak, that bothered me deeply. These little sparrows were my friends. I wanted them to have their share. I wanted them to eat freely without fear or competition. Now, most people would have tried to solve this problem through action. They would have scared away the pigeons. They would have put out separate feeding stations. They would have changed the time of day they fed the birds. But I had learned something about the nature of reality. I had learned that the outer world, even the behavior of birds, is a reflection of consciousness. And so I decided to apply the law. One night, as I was preparing for sleep, I imagined something very specific. I saw the sparrows eating freely, unbothered by the larger birds. I saw them hopping around the feeding area with confidence, getting their fill of the good seed, and I imagined telling my wife the next morning, the pigeons are no longer a problem. They're taking their share like gentlemen and leaving plenty for the sparrows. I didn't just visualize this once. I continued this imaginal act every night for almost a month. I made it as real in my imagination as if it were happening in my physical world. I felt the satisfaction of seeing my sparrows fed. I heard myself telling my wife about the change, and I fell asleep in that assumption night after night without wavering. And then one morning, something remarkable happened. The pigeons disappeared, just like that. They simply stopped coming to the feeding area. For several days, the sparrows had breakfast all to themselves. They ate freely, abundantly, without any competition. It was exactly what I had imagined. Eventually, the pigeons did return. But here's what's important. They never again infringed on the area occupied by my sparrows. To this day, they stay together in their own section, eating what I put out for them, but they leave a full share of the space to my tiny friends. The dynamic completely changed, not because I took action to change it, but because I changed my assumption in consciousness. Now, some of you might be thinking that's just a coincidence. Birds are unpredictable. This would have happened anyway. But I tell you, and I say this with absolute certainty, there are no coincidences. Everything in your world, down to the smallest detail, is the outpicturing of your consciousness. Those pigeons obeyed my assumption just as surely as money obeys your assumption, just as relationships obey your assumption, just as health obeys your assumption. Because consciousness is the only reality. What you assume in your inner world must manifest in your outer world. It has no choice. This is law. This is the way creation works. And when you understand this, when you truly accept that you are not a victim of circumstances, but the creator of them, you become free to imagine any state, any condition, any life you desire. And by assuming it faithfully in consciousness, you bring it into being. Now, I want to teach you the two assumptions that will end your struggle with money forever. These are not complicated. They are not difficult to understand, but they require something of you. Faith, not faith in some distant God who may or may not grant your wishes, but faith in the law of consciousness. Faith in the creative power of your own awareness. The first assumption is the simplest and the most powerful. I am wealthy. Not I will be wealthy. Not I want to be wealthy. Not I hope to be wealthy someday. But I am wealthy now in this present moment. This is not a statement about your bank account. This is a statement about your identity, your being, your consciousness. You see, the entire Bible, the entire mystical tradition rests on one statement. When Moses asked God his name, God answered with 3 words, I am that I am. This is God's definition of himself. And you must understand something crucial, that I am is not somewhere outside you sitting on a throne in some distant heaven. It is you. Your awareness of being is God, the consciousness that is reading these words right now, that is aware of its own existence, that is God. This is not blasphemy. This is the deepest truth of Scripture. Be still, the psalmist says, and know that I am God. Not I was God, not I will be God, I am God. Present tense, eternal now. And that I am is your very consciousness, your awareness of being. When you say I am poor, you are defining yourself. You are using the creative name of God I am and attaching it to poverty. And reality has no choice but to conform to yourself, Defin. You are decreeing your lack by the very words, the very feeling, the very assumption you hold in consciousness. But the moment you shift to I am wealthy, you redefine yourself. You claim a new identity. And because I am is the creative power, the entire world must reorganize itself to match that new definition. This is not pretending. This is not lying to yourself. This is claiming your true identity as the creative power of the universe. Think of it this way. Your consciousness is like a sensitive film in a camera. Whatever impression you place upon it, whatever image you expose it to, that is what it will develop and project into your world. If you impress upon it an image of poverty, if you constantly say and feel, I am broke, I am struggling, I have no money, then that film will develop a picture of poverty. And that picture will be projected as your life experience. But if you impress upon it an image of wealth, if you assume I am wealthy, I am abundant, I am secure, then that film will develop a picture of wealth. And that is what you will experience in your world. The film doesn't question. It simply receives the impression and projects it faithfully. This is why Jesus said, therefore I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. Not believe that you will receive them someday. Believe that you receive them now in the present moment. Assume the feeling of already possessing what you desire. This is prayer. This is the creative act. And the law does not care about your current circumstances. It does not look at your bank account and say, well, this person only has 20, so I can't help them become wealthy. It cares only about your assumption. It responds only to consciousness. I have watched men with nothing become millionaires by assuming wealth. And I have watched men with fortunes lose everything by assuming lack. The outer world is always effect. Consciousness is always cause. So I ask you right now in this moment, what are you assuming about yourself when you think about money? What is the feeling that arises in you? Is it anxiety? Is it lack? Is it the sense that you're always one step behind, always struggling to make ends meet? Or is it the feeling of sufficiency, of abundance, of being someone for whom money flows naturally and effortlessly? Because whatever you are assuming, whatever feeling you return to most often, that is what you are creating. That is what you are impressing upon the film of consciousness. And that is what will develop in your world. You might be thinking, but how can I assume I'm wealthy when my bank account says otherwise? How can I feel rich when I'm worried about paying rent? And I understand that question. It seems impossible at first. It seems like you will be lying to yourself, denying reality, living in fantasy. But here's what you must understand. The reality you see with your physical eyes is not the only reality. In fact, it is the least reality. It is the shadow, the outping of something much more real, your consciousness. And the moment you change your consciousness, that shadow must change to match it. You are not denying anything. You are simply choosing which reality to accept as true. You can accept the reality of your current bank account, or you can accept the reality of your desired state. You can accept what your senses tell you, or you can accept what your imagination reveals to you. And whichever one you persist in accepting, whichever one you assume to be true, that is the one that will manifest. This is faith, not blind belief, but the willingness to remain faithful to the unseen reality until it becomes seen. Faith, the scripture says, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Your assumption of wealth is the substance, the reality of the wealth you hope for. And if you will remain faithful to that assumption, if you will not let the evidence of your senses move, it must become visible. The second assumption is this: it is finished. These were the last words of Jesus on the cross, and they contain the entire secret of manifestation. It is finished does not mean it will be finished someday. It does not mean I hope it will be finished. It means it is already done, complete, accomplished. The wish is already fulfilled. This is what I call living in the end, and it is the most important principle you will ever learn. You see, most people think of their desires. They visualize what they want. They hope for it. They work toward it. But they are always thinking of it as something in the future, something they don't yet have. And as long as you think of your desire as future, it will always remain in the future. Tomorrow never comes. But when you live in the end, when you assume the feeling of the wish already fulfilled, you collapse time. You bring the future into the present. You are no longer hoping for wealth. You are being wealthy. You are not working towards success. You are successful. And because consciousness is the only reality, what you assume in, consciousness is more real than what your senses report. Let me explain the difference between thinking of the end and thinking from the end. If you lie in bed tonight and imagine yourself working hard to become wealthy, you are thinking of the end. You are placing wealth in the future. You are affirming that you are not yet there. You are in the state of becoming, which means you are perpetually in the state of not yet having. But if you lie in bed and feel the satisfaction, the relief, the quiet confidence of already being wealthy, if you feel what it would feel like right now, if your desire were already fulfilled, then you are thinking from the end. You are dwelling in the wish fulfilled. You have assumed the state of completion, and that state persistently occupied must harden into fact. It must externalize. It must become your lived reality. This is not a trick. This is not positive thinking. This is the actual mechanics of creation. Jesus said, therefore, I say unto you, what things soever ye desire when ye pray, believe that ye receive them, not that you will receive them, that you do receive them, present tense. Now, when you assume the wish fulfilled, you are not asking the universe for something. You are not begging God to please. Maybe if he feels like it, give you what you want. You are declaring what already is. You are claiming what is already yours in the realm of consciousness. And because consciousness is the only reality, because nothing exists outside of consciousness. What you claim in consciousness must by law become visible in form. The scripture says, in my Father's house are many mansions. Do you know what a mansion is? Psychologically speaking, it is a state of consciousness. Every desire you have ever had already exists as a state in consciousness. It is already built. It is already furnished. It is already real. You are not creating it. You are entering it. And how do you enter it? By assuming the feeling of already being there. By living in that state in your imagination until it becomes your natural dwelling place. A goal. Jesus said to prepare a place for you. Where does he go? Into imagination, into the wished for state. And having prepared it, having felt it real, having assumed it as true, he returns to the physical world. And the physical world must conform to what was established in imagination. This is why I say you go and prepare a place for yourself by imagining yourself into the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Then with an irresistible forward movement, you move across a series of events to the physical realization of your wish. You don't have to figure out how. You don't have to plan the steps. The bridge of incidents builds itself. Let me tell you why most people never experience wealth. It is not because they don't want it. It is not because they're not smart enough or talented enough or deserving enough. It is because they believe they must work hard for it. And that belief, that assumption keeps them trapped in struggle. You've been taught your entire life that wealth is earned, that it's the reward for hard work, for sacrifice, for proving yourself worthy. And so you work, you push, you grind yourself down, you sacrifice your time, your health, your relationships. And the more you struggle, the more you affirm the state of not having. You see, struggle implies separation from your desire. It says, I do not have this yet, so I must fight to get it. It assumes lack. And as long as you assume lack, you will experience lack. It doesn't matter how hard you work. The law of consciousness does not respond to effort. It responds only to assumption. Jesus said, take no thought for your life, what you shall eat, neither for the body, what you shall put on. Why? Because anxious thought, effortful thought is the evidence of assumption rooted in lack. It says, I need to worry. I need to figure this out. And that assumption creates more lack, more worry, more struggle. The way to wealth is not through effort. It is through rest. Come unto me. Jesus said, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Rest from what? Rest from the belief that you must do something to earn your good. Rest from the struggle to strive in the endless pushing and fighting. Be still, the psalmist says, and know that I am God. Be still. Stop the frantic activity. Stop the anxious thought. Stop trying to make it happen through force of will and effort. And know not hope, not believe. But know that I am your own. Consciousness is the creative power. And that power responds to assumption, not action. When you are still, when you cease striving and simply assume the wish fulfilled, you allow the creative power within you to do its work. You get out of your own way. You stop interfering with the natural flow of manifestation. And the universe, which is nothing but your own consciousness pushed out, rearranges itself to match your assumption. I cannot emphasize this enough. The assumption of the wish fulfilled is the only work you must do, and it is not work at all. It is simply the gentle, persistent feeling of already being what you desire to be. You don't need to figure out how it will happen. You don't need to plan the steps. You don't need to force doors open or manipulate circumstances. You need only to assume the end. And the bridge of incidents will build itself automatically, effortlessly, perfectly. Think about the banker I told you about earlier. Did he figure out how to get his dream job? Did he network his way to the top? Did he manipulate circumstances? No. He simply assumed the feeling of the wish fulfilled and reality, because it must conform to consciousness, brought him the opportunity. The director called him, the door opened, not through his effort, but through his assumption. This is how it works every single time without exception. Consciousness is the only reality, and what you assume in consciousness must manifest in form. This is law, not sometimes law, not maybe law, always law. Now I want to talk about something that confuses many people. They say, but I can see my circumstances. I can see my empty bank account. I can see the bills piling up. How can I deny what's right in front of me? And I tell you, you are not denying anything. You are simply recognizing that the outer world is effect, not cause. Your current circumstances are the result of your past assumptions. They are yesterday's consciousness made visible. They are not the cause of your future. They are not the determining factor of what comes next. They are simply a delayed reflection of what you used to assume about yourself. And the moment you change your assumption, the moment you claim a new identity, a new state in consciousness, you set in motion a new future. You don't need to wait for your circumstances to change before you can assume wealth. You assume wealth first, and then your circumstances must change to match it. This is what it means when the scripture says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Your heart, your consciousness, is the seed from which your entire life grows. Change the seed and you change the harvest. It's that simple. Not easy, perhaps, but simple. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are the creator of circumstance. The bank does not determine your wealth. Your employer does not determine your success. The economy does not determine your prosperity. Your assumption, your persistent feeling of what you are determines everything. I have seen this proven again and again. I have seen men in the midst of economic collapse become wealthy because they refused to assume poverty. They looked at the same headlines, the same crashing markets, the same doom and gloom that everyone else saw, but they did not accept it as their reality. They assumed wealth in consciousness, and wealth found them. And I have seen men in times of prosperity lose everything because they assumed lack. They had money in the bank, but poverty in consciousness. And because consciousness is caused, they lost the money. The outer always conforms to the inner always. So I ask you again, what are you assuming right now? Not what are your circumstances, but what are you assuming about yourself? Because your assumption is the only thing that matters. Your assumption is the seed. Your assumption is the cause. Your assumption is the creative power. Now let me give you the practical application. Let me show you exactly how to put this into practice starting tonight. The first practice is what I call the nightly assumption. Every night when you lie in bed in that drowsy state between waking and sleeping, when your conscious mind begins to relax and your imagination becomes receptive, I want you to do one thing. Feel yourself already wealthy. Do not imagine yourself working toward wealth. Do not visualize yourself someday having money. Do not think of the steps you need to take. Feel it now. Feel the reality of already possessing it in this present moment. What would it feel like if your bank account were full right now? What would it feel like to know beyond any doubt that you are financially secure? What would it feel like to go through your day without a single worry about money? Feel that. Let that feeling saturate your entire being. Let it become so real to you that it is more real than your current circumstances. And as you feel it, as you dwell in that state, let yourself drift off to sleep. Carry that feeling with you into the night. This is not visualization. This is not positive thinking. This is assumption. You are not imagining a future possibility. You are claiming a present reality. This is the secret. This is what the banker did. This is what I have done countless times in my own life. And you must do it with persistence, not once or twice, but every single night until the assumption becomes natural, until you no longer have to try to feel wealthy because you simply are wealthy in consciousness. The scripture says men ought always to pray and not to faint. To pray means to give thanks for already having what you desire. And persistence, faithful, unwavering persistence, is what transforms assumption into fact. It is what allows the inner state to harden into outer form. Most people assume the wish fulfilled for a day or two, maybe a week if they're disciplined. And then when nothing appears to change in their outer world, they give up. They return to their old assumption. They go back to worrying, to feeling poor, to believing that wealth is something they must work for and may never achieve. But if you will persist, if you will remain faithful to your new assumption. Even when your senses tell you nothing has changed, you will see it manifest. You must, because consciousness is the only reality, and what you persist in assuming must by law externalize. The second practice is what I call it Sabbath. And this is perhaps the most difficult for people to understand because it goes against every instinct you've been taught. The Sabbath is not a day of the week. It is a state of consciousness. It is the rest, the stillness, the inner peace that comes when you know your assumption has been accepted. It is the end of struggle. After you have assumed the wish fulfilled, you must rest. You must stop looking for signs. You must stop anxiously checking your bank account to see if the money has appeared yet. You must stop asking, when will it happen? How will it happen? Is it working? Because all of those questions come from the state of lack. They say, I don't have it yet. Rest means trusting that consciousness is the only reality, and what you have assumed in consciousness is already done. It means being still in the knowing that your assumption is the seed, and like any seed, it must have time to grow beneath the surface before it breaks through into visibility. This is the hardest part for most people. They assume the wish fulfilled for a moment and then immediately return to doubt. They assume wealth at night and poverty by morning. They claim I am wealthy in their imagination and then spend the entire day worrying about bills, complaining about their job, feeling poor, and this is why they don't see results. Not because the law doesn't work, but because they won't remain faithful to their assumption. They won't rest in the Sabbath. They won't trust the creative power of consciousness. But if you will rest, if you will remain unmoved by appearances, if you will continue to dwell in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, even when your outer world has not yet changed, you will see it harden into fact. It must. There is no other possible outcome, because consciousness is cause and the world is effect. The effect must follow the cause always. The world is always a little late in catching up to your assumption. There is a time lag. The seed must grow in the dark before it breaks through the soil. But it will break through if you remain faithful. If you do not uproot the seed by return to doubt, it will manifest. Jesus said, if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible unto you. Faith is not hoping it might work. Faith is knowing it must work, because consciousness is law, and a grain, even the smallest amount, is enough if you persist in it. The third and final practice is revision. And this is how you train your consciousness to remain faithful to your assumption, even when your day has been filled with experiences that contradict it. Throughout your day, you will inevitably slip back into your old patterns. Someone will say something that triggers the feeling of lack in you. You'll see a bill and feel poor. You'll compare yourself to someone wealthier and feel inadequate. These moments will happen. This is natural. You're breaking a lifelong habit of assuming lack, and habits don't die easily. But here's what you must do. At the end of each day, before you go to sleep, review what happened. And wherever you reacted from lack, wherever you felt poor, wherever you worried about money, wherever you doubted your assumption, revise it. Replay the moment in your imagination, but this time replay it from the assumption of wealth. See yourself responding not with fear, but with confidence. See yourself knowing that money is not a problem for you. See yourself as the person you're claiming to be, the person who is already wealthy in consciousness. If someone insulted you and you reacted with hurt or anger, revise it. See yourself responding with the dignity and confidence of someone who knows their worth. If you worried about a bill, revise it. See yourself paying it easily, knowing more money is always flowing to you. If you felt envious of someone else's success, revise it. See yourself celebrating their good fortune, knowing that abundance is infinite and their wealth does not diminish yours. This practice of revision does two things. First, it prevents the negative impression from taking root in your consciousness. Second, it trains you to habitually assume the state you desire rather than the state you're trying to leave behind over time. And it doesn't take as long as you might think. This practice will shift your habitual state. You will find that you naturally assume wealth more often than lack. You will catch yourself before you react from poverty. You will find that your default assumption is abundance rather than scarcity. And as your assumption becomes habitual, your world will transform to match it. This is the work, not outer work, not physical labor, but the inner work of assuming, persisting, and remaining faithful. This is all you must do. And If you do it, if you truly commit to living from the assumption that you are already what you desire to be, I promise you, your entire life will change. Now, I want to share something else with you, something that many people struggle with when they first begin this practice. And that is the question, what do I do in the meantime while I'm assuming wealth in consciousness, but my circumstances haven't changed yet? How do I handle my daily life? Do I still go to work? Do I still pay my bills? Do I still take action in the physical world? And the answer is yes, of course you do. You see, this teaching is not about becoming passive or irresponsible. It's not about sitting on your couch imagining wealth while ignoring the practical realities of life. It's about understanding the proper order of creation. Consciousness is cause. The outer world is effect. You change consciousness first and then outer world must follow. But in the time between your assumption and its manifestation, you continue to move through your life, naturally without strain, without anxiety, without the belief that your actions are what's creating your good. Think of it this way. If you assume wealth and then an opportunity comes to you, a job offer, a business idea, a chance encounter, you take it. But you take it knowing that the opportunity came because of your assumption, not the other way around. You're not working to create the wealth. The wealth is creating the opportunities through which it can flow to you. This is a subtle but crucial distinction. Most people believe their actions create their results. So they work frantically trying to force things to happen. And in that frantic effort, they're actually assuming lack. They're assuming they must do something to make it happen because it's not already done. But when you understand that consciousness is cause, you move through a day with a different quality. You're not pushing. You're not straining. You're not desperately trying to make things work out. You're simply being open to the opportunities that your assumption is naturally bringing to you. And when they come, you move on them naturally, easily, knowing that this is the bridge of incidents building itself. Let me give you an example. A woman once came to me in great distress about money. She was in debt, struggling to pay her rent, worried constantly about survival. I told her the same thing I'm telling you. Assume wealth. Feel yourself already financially secure. Live in that state in consciousness. She asked me the same question, but what do I do about my bills right now? What do I do about the rent that's due next week? And I said, handle them as best you can without anxiety. Pay what you can pay, but do it from the assumption that this is temporary, that you are actually a wealthy person who is simply moving through a brief chapter of limitation. And more importantly, every night before you sleep, assume the feeling of being financially free. Feel what it would feel like to have more than enough and rest in that assumption. She did this, and within weeks, things began to shift. A friend offered her a business opportunity she hadn't seen coming. Her employer suddenly approved a raise she hadn't even asked for. Someone repaid a loan she'd long forgotten about. Money came from directions she never would have predicted, not because she worked harder, but because she assumed differently. And here's what she told me later. The strangest thing was that I stopped feeling desperate. Even though my circumstances hadn't fully changed yet, I felt wealthy inside. And that feeling changed everything. How I carried myself, how I spoke to people, the opportunities I attracted. It was like the world started treating me the way I was treating myself in consciousness. This is the secret. You don't wait for the world to give you permission to feel wealthy. You claim that feeling now in consciousness, and then the world has no choice but to conform to your claim. Now, let me address another question that comes up frequently. What if I've been assuming wealth for weeks or even months and nothing has changed? What if I'm doing everything right, but the money still isn't coming? Does that mean it's not working? Does that mean I'm doing something wrong? And I tell you, no. It does not mean it's not working. It means you're not remaining faithful. Because if you're asking these questions, if you're checking to see if it's working, you're not living in the end. You're still in a state of waiting, hoping, doubting. And that state is what you're assuming. And that state is what you're manifesting. You see, the very act of asking, is it working, reveals that you don't yet believe it's done. You're still treating it as something in the future, something uncertain, something that might or might not happen. But living in the end means knowing it's already done, not hoping it will be done, not believing it might be done, knowing it is done. And when you truly know something is done, you don't check to see if it's working. You don't anxiously look for signs. You don't worry about when it will happen. You rest. You're still. You're at peace because there's nothing to worry about. It's finished. This is why I keep emphasizing the Sabbath, the rest, the stillness. This is not passivity. This is the confidence of one who knows that what they've claimed in consciousness must become visible in form. It's the peace that passes understanding, and it's the most important part of the entire practice. If you will learn nothing else from this teaching, learn this. Remain faithful to your assumption. Do not waver. Do not let the evidence of your senses move you. Do not let time discourage you. Do not let the opinions of others shake your conviction. Rest in the knowing that consciousness is the only reality, and what you've assumed in consciousness is already done. And then, and only then will you see it manifest. Not because you forced it, not because you worked for it, but because it had no choice. Because consciousness is law, and the law must fulfill itself. Let me share one more story with you before we close. This is about a man who had struggled with poverty his entire life. He came from nothing. He'd worked hard all his life, but it seemed like no matter what he did, he could never get ahead. He would make a little money, and then an unexpected expense would wipe it out. He would start to build something, and then it would fall apart over and over, the same pattern. When he came to me, he was exhausted, defeated. He said, I've tried everything. I've worked harder than anyone I know. I've sacrificed everything, and I'm still broke. Maybe I'm just not meant to have money. Maybe some people are just destined to struggle. I looked at him and I said, the problem is not your work. The problem is your assumption. You have been assuming poverty your entire life, and no amount of action can override an assumption. You can work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. And if you're assuming poverty, you will remain poor. He didn't want to hear that. Like most people, he wanted a strategy, a tactic, an action plan. He wanted me to tell him what to do differently in the outer world. But I told him there's nothing to do in the outer world. Everything must be done in consciousness. You must assume wealth, not try to get it, not hope for it. Assume it, feel it, be it in consciousness, and then rest. He didn't fully understand, but he agreed to try. And for the first time in his life, instead of working harder, he did less. Instead of straining and pushing and fighting, he would lie in bed each night and simply feel wealthy. He would imagine his bank account full. He would feel the relief, the peace, the confidence of being financially secure, and he would fall asleep in that feeling. At first, nothing changed. His circumstances remained the same, and he was tempted to give up, to return to his old ways of working and striving and pushing. But something kept him going. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was faith. But he persisted in the assumption. And then after about 6 weeks, something shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but he noticed that opportunities started appearing. Small things at first, a side job here, an unexpected refund there. Someone offering to pay him for a skill he didn't even know was valuable. Little by little, the flow began. And as he remained faithful to his assumption, as he continued to feel wealthy in consciousness night after night, the flow increased. Bigger opportunities came. Better offers, doors that had been closed suddenly opened. Within 6 months, his entire financial situation had transformed. Not because he worked harder, but because he assumed differently. And he told me later the most amazing thing was realizing that I had the power all along. I spent my whole life believing I was at the mercy of the economy, my employer, my circumstances. But the moment I changed my assumption, the moment I claimed wealth in consciousness, everything changed. I am the power. My consciousness is the power. And nothing outside me can stop what I assume within me. This is the truth I want you to grasp tonight. You are the power, not your circumstances, not your bank account, not your employer or the economy or anything external to you. Your consciousness is the creative power, and whatever you assume in consciousness must by law become your reality. So tonight, let me bring this to a close by leaving you with the most important truth you will ever hear. You did not come to this teaching by accident. You were not led here by chance. You are here because somewhere deep inside you, you know you've always known that you are more than what the world has told you. You are not a servant of circumstance. You are not a victim of economy or luck or fate. You are the creator of your reality. The two assumptions I've shared with you tonight are not new. They are not my invention. They are ancient truths, the foundation upon which all mystical teaching rests. They are the secrets that have been hidden in plain sight in scripture, in parable, in symbol, waiting for those with ears to hear and eyes to see. The first assumption, I am wealthy. This is your identity. This is your true name, the name that God gave himself. I am is the name he gave you. And when you claim it, when you attach it to the state you desire, you step into your power as God, imagining himself into form. You are not becoming God. You are God. You have always been God. You are simply remembering what you forgot. The second assumption, it is finished. The wish is already fulfilled in consciousness. You are not waiting for it to happen. You are not hoping it might happen someday. You are accepting that it has already happened in the only place that matters in consciousness, which is the only reality. And what is real in consciousness must become real in form. It must externalize. It must manifest. This is law. These two assumptions faithfully held will end your struggle with money forever. Not because money will magically appear from nowhere, though sometimes it will seem that way, but because your consciousness, your I am, will rearrange your entire world to match what you have assumed to be true. Opportunities will come, doors will open, people will appear, circumstances will align, not through your effort, but through your assumption. And here's what I want you to understand. This is not just about money. This is about everything. Every area of your life, your relationships, your health, your career, your happiness, all of it is determined by what you assume yourself to be. Change your assumption and you change your world. It's that simple. It's that profound. It's that absolute. So tonight, before you sleep, I want you to do something. I want you to claim your wealth. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when your circumstances improve. Now, right now, claim it in consciousness. Feel yourself already wealthy. Feel the satisfaction of it. Feel the peace of it. Feel the reality of it. And in that feeling, that deep quiet, knowing that you are what you desire to be, fall asleep. And tomorrow, when you wake, do not return to the old assumption. Do not let your circumstances dictate your state. Do not let your bank account or your bills or anyone's opinion tell you who you are. Remain in the new assumption. Persist. Be faithful. Rest in the Sabbath of fulfillment. And watch as your world transforms to confirm what you have claimed within. Remember, I am wealth. I am abundance. I am security. Not because you have earned it. Not because you deserve it in some moral sense, but because I am is what you are. And whatever you attach to I am, you become. This is the creative power of the universe. This is God himself operating as you. And when you assume wealth in consciousness, wealth must become your reality. It is finished. The work is done. The wish is fulfilled. Not in the future. Now in this eternal present moment, you are no longer hoping for wealth. You are wealthy. You are no longer becoming prosperous. You are prosperity itself. And because this is true in consciousness, it must become true in form. I invite you to rest in this truth, to claim it, to live from it, to persist in it until it becomes as natural to you as breathing. This is the teaching that changed my life. This is the law that governs all creation, and now it is yours. If this teaching has awakened something in you, if you feel that inner resonance that tells you this is true, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. You'll find more of my lectures here, teachings that have transformed countless lives, teachings that will continue to guide you deeper into the understanding of consciousness as the only reality. If this message resonated with you tonight, if something in your heart said yes, leave a like so others can find this teaching. And I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what assumption will you claim tonight? What state will you enter before you sleep? Will you claim wealth? Will you claim success? Will you claim the life you've always known you were meant to live? Share it with me. I read every comment, and your words, your declarations help to strengthen not just your own faith, but the faith of everyone who reads them. This is not just information. This is transformation, and it begins the moment you stop trying to get what you want and start assuming you already have it. So go now, claim your wealth. It is already yours. It has always been yours. You need only to assume it. I am wealthy. It is finished.